Hey y'all, today I'm going to tell you about the EIS I reviewed for my SIA analysis, which was a project titled New Orleans to Venice, Louisiana Hurricane Risk Reduction Project, specifically the incorporation of non-federal levees from Oakville to St. Jude, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana. Just so a few important abbreviations to go through off the top. NOV refers to New Orleans to Venice, and that's the section of the federal levee system in Louisiana. NFL refers to non-federal levees. USACE is the United States Army Corps of Engineers. CEMVK is the abbreviation for the Vicksburg district of USACE, which is the one located in the region this project takes place. And then finally, OSJ, which is an abbreviation I created to abbreviate the section of Plaquemines Parish where this is taking place, which is Oakville to St. Jude. So just a little bit of background about the area of study. Plaquemines Parish is an area in Louisiana, including in south of New Orleans. It is 64% black, or 20% black, and 64% white as of 2024. It's also split about the same 50-50 for gender, but the population in 2019 was only 23,000. Just to go into a little bit more detail about where this project is taking place, I marked with a red circle on the map the 32-mile stretch of levees between OSJ in Plaquemines Parish. The majority of Plaquemines Parish is 1 to 10 meters above sea level, meaning it's highly vulnerable to climate flood events like hurricanes. In 2005, the parish experienced flooding and levee failure and a number of consequential social and economic effects from Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, which really revealed the vulnerability of the current levee system. And major industries in the area are shellfish and seafood and citrus, which were again disrupted by the flooding events from Hurricane Katrina. So on this slide, I just have a few visuals to give you guys. On the left, we see an example of a constructed levee along the coastline in Louisiana there. The main features of that are just height and then some earthen slope and strength in order to hold the rising water levels back from infrastructures. And then on the right, we see examples from Hurricane Katrina and Rita where levees failed to keep water out of human infrastructure. And to summarize the EIS a little bit, the trigger event which led to the creation of this project, as I've previously mentioned, is the levee damage and failure following Hurricanes Rita and Katrina. To be more specific, levees in the southern portion of the OSJ NFL system were as low as 3 to 4 feet in height, while some levees in the northern portion topped 8 feet. This did not meet standards set by the Plaquemines Parish management system. And the aim of this project is to modify and construct levees in the 32-mile OSJ NFL system and incorporate them into the NOV federal levee system to ensure the timeliness and maintenance of levees on the coastline. This involves levee construction, ecosystem mitigation, and then long-term management. So actors and funding involved with this project. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is the head of this transition and management and construction, but more specifically, their Vicksburg district is the one focusing on this project and completing the EIS. I also put a logo for Plaquemines Parish government because we see that through this project, the ownership of these levees transitions away to the federal level. Funding from this project came from the Emergency Supplemental Appropriations Act for Defense, the Global War on Terror, and Hurricane Recovery 2006 bill. This bill appropriated over $3.1 billion to Katrina recovery, but specifically $671 million were appropriated for the OSJ project. So here I've put the list of preparers included in the EIS. We see that this is a diverse team of professions. We see we have specialized scientists in multiple disciplines, including ecology, biology, regional economics, and planning, civil engineering as well. We see that all of the preparers come from CEMVK, which is that Vicksburg district. And we see that there's nested oversight and then people tackling different aspects of the EIS at once. We also see that we have professional scientists handling and making conclusions on the data. So methods. The list of preparers created and used three alternatives. Alternative A involves no federal intervention. Alternative B, which is proposed, is the incorporation of the levees into the NOVE system and then complete levee construction and modification. I would like to note that by that I mean construction to meet the 50-year 2% level of flood risk reduction standards, which are set by the General Design Memorandum and upheld by the NOVE levee system. These standards are also informed by the Standard Projection Hurricane Event Model, which is said to predict the strength and frequency of hurricane events. And this also involves additions of up to 4 feet to existing levees to reach an approximate 8-foot standard across this OSJ levee system, but more importantly, specific heights more pertain to this 50-year 2% level of risk reduction. And then we see alternative C involves limited levee construction in the OSJ stretch due to budgetary constraints. So data collection came from a number of sources. Referencing Burge a little, we see that Burge had specific recommendations, such as collecting specific environmental info on the local level while maybe looking at economics and employment on a more regional level. We see that the preparers did a good job of collecting diverse and thorough data. We see that population and socioeconomic data is represented on the state level with the Department of Labor, but also on the national level with the U.S. Census. Cultural data is captured with the National Register of Historic Places. We don't see any other evidence of cultural or social data collection, but we do know that public information and comment sessions collected comments on this issue. Data involving construction was collected from the Highway Administration, and as mentioned earlier, environmental data was collected on the local level, including the hurricane model data used to inform the standards. As for comparative analysis, there was no evidence that the preparers used the diachronic model in order to discuss the effects of this project. My perception of this is that USACE has established a precedent when it comes to levee maintenance and levee construction, even in the Gulf region or specifically in Louisiana. We see that 2 EISs in the 80s tackled issues with levee construction materials and coastal placement of these levees. They've also issued several EAs for levee projects in Louisiana, along with 7 current project listings related to coastal erosion in the Louisiana region. My hypothesis is that USACE is able to justify the expected impacts of their project through thorough data analysis, but also due to their preceding projects in the region. I'd also like to mention that they used a military decision-making process in assessing their alternatives, and this assesses choices for things like feasibility, efficiency, and everything related to that process. As for public participation, there was not great evidence that public participation was as thorough as Burge might have recommended. They did mention 2 initial public workshops in 2007. This was at the beginning of the drafting stage and involved written and oral comments. In 2008, there was a series of interagency meetings during the development of the draft EIS. In 2009, there was a public workshop held upon the publishing of the draft EIS, which involved reflection and commenting as well. And then in 2011, which was the year of the final EIS, public workshops were held with a comment session determining 7 distinct areas of stakeholder concern. It's important to note that the preparers addressed all 7 of these in the final EIS, creating sections related to their impacts. I've listed these below. The one I would like to mention is Myrtle Grove resident concerns, which specifically tackles a neighborhood in Plaquemines Parish, and in this way they're addressing the social concerns of the local stakeholders specifically, along with environmental concerns, which they do emphasize. As for social impacts, socioeconomic profile was informed from the 2000 U.S. Census along with the public comment sessions. Alternative B anticipates little socioeconomic impact because the nature of the project is to improve flood prevention for the community. The alternative that involves no federal intervention is the one that involves the majority of social impacts because no federal intervention likely results in flooding events, major infrastructural damages, displacement, unemployment, and low real estate values in the area. They're mostly anticipating coastal ecosystem impacts. We see that for alternative C, there's similar impacts to alternative A, but it's limited due to the sort of scarce construction of levees due to budget limitations. As for mitigation and monitoring, we see that mitigation largely emphasizes ecosystem mitigation. This is because the construction is happening along the coastal line where there's a diverse set of wetlands ecosystems. Construction is expected to disrupt the function of these ecosystems. However, they've included in Appendix J, which is a detailed mitigation technique, timeline, and chain of command instruction manual of sorts to address different aspects of wetlands mitigation, including swamps, timber, topography, hydrology. And as for monitoring strategies, Appendix J includes this as well. Most of this monitoring is just about the state of the levees themselves, but is also about monitoring the mitigation techniques. So this is where that chain of command and schedule for monitoring kind of comes in. And that's broken down into each subcategory of mitigation. So example would be topography. As for principles, I won't go into too much detail here. I personally believe that the SIA satisfies all 6 of the US principles and all 8 of the international principles. I do think it's a little iffy when it comes to the proposed action because they're expecting limited social and economic impact. I think that they expect more benefit than negative because it's a preventative measure for future climate events. I think in this way they are considering the welfare of this community and anticipating negative effects of displacement if this work is not done. They use public involvement to inform their social data, and they were very thorough in including professional scientists to collect and analyze this data. I would give this SIA a final grade of A because of its strict nature of following data collection techniques and following the standards of SIA. I do believe that having USACE and in turn CEMBK managing this project allows for management to be performed in a very standardized, almost militaristic way. And I think in this way, this document is very well organized and developed. Thank you.